In this video, we're going to take a quick tour of some of the basic formatting options that you have in Google Sheets, the ones that you're most likely to use at least. In a sheet, the main formatting options you will find along this toolbar at the top here. And if you're using a smaller screen, you may also find that there'll be a little arrow at the side here to expand it because there won't be enough space for all of these to display, particularly in Chromebooks. So just be aware of that. Most of the tools are things that you'll be pretty familiar with, like bold, italics, text color, fill color, font style, so on and so forth, font size. These are all things that you'll be used to from really any other digital documents. And I suspect there's not much point in me going through them in any great detail. The one thing I would point out is just to remember that in a spreadsheet, you will apply these formatting options to whichever cells you have selected. So for example, if we have only a single cell selected and we change the font size, that font size change will only apply to that individual cell. So if we wish to apply a formatting change to the entire spreadsheet, we need to select the whole spreadsheet up here and then make whatever change it is that we're going to make. And you'll find then that that will apply to everything. Likewise, if we change any other formatting tools, that will apply to the whole spreadsheet. Now, it might be that we don't want to do that for all of them. For example, we might just want this top row to be bold, so we can just select a row and we could apply it there. Or we could select an individual group of cells and say, for example, make that group be a particular color. So there's really not a lot to learning how to use the basic formatting tools. I'll just come back to here because I didn't quite click that properly. The ones that you're probably going to be most likely to be less aware of are things like adding borders. So for example, if I wanted to highlight or at least outline all of these cells with a border, I can highlight them and then I can use this tool here to control how borders will appear. This first one will add borders to the boundary of every single cell, and then we have a range of other options to control where the borders will appear. And if I use this, I can also then choose the thickness and color. So if I wanted the border to be blue, I can do that. And I can also change the thickness and the style of the border as well if I wanted to. So I can change quite a lot about the style of these borders, and we can even individually select groups them. So for example, the inner borders, if we wanted them to be a thinner style, we could go back to a sort of a standard line there. So we can use this toolbox here to control the way that the borders will appear. We'll also find that sometimes we have text that we want to fit into a cell, but we want to make the cell smaller. So one of the things we'll sometimes do is we'll change the size of a row or of a column, usually of columns. So if we take, say, for example, this cell here, we'll add in a date, and then we'll duplicate that date by just selecting it and then dragging the little blue button over to the right-hand side here. And you'll see that it's automatically added a day because it can tell it's a date. But we don't want the columns to be this width. So for example, we could select from this column, hold Shift, select this column, do our right click, and then resize the columns. When we resize the columns, we could maybe make them, let's say, 30 wide. And the problem you'll see that is that we now can't actually read the text that's in these headings at the top here. So if we want to, if we select these, we can go up here and we can use the option to change the text rotation so that the text is written vertically going up the way. There's some other options in here that are all pretty self-explanatory that control how the text wraps from one cell to the next, or how it's vertically aligned, and so on and so forth. The best advice I could give you is just have a wee play around with it. Now, it might be that you also have a title, and the information is actually going to be in all of these rows below. So for example, it's going to be in these here. So we want that title to actually cover both of these cells. And we can also merge cells by selecting two together and using this tool here called Merge Cells. And we can undo that in here by unmerging. So there's a range of the kind of appearance-based formatting that you can do. Some of the other things that we might want to be able to do would be to add formatting to tell a cell what it is. So if this was going to be cash, and we had a value in here, say £40, and we had a series of other values below that, rather than individually having to add a pound sign every time we type a value in, we can highlight those cells, and we can go up here and select Format as Currency. And that will just tell those cells that they're meant to be currency, and it will always add a pound sign. So all you would need to do if you click on one of these cells is just type in 30, enter, and it will add the pound sign for you. In much the same way, you can apply the same principle for dates. Try again. And you'll see that up here we have an option to drop down, and there are a whole range of other formats that we can choose, date being one of them. Percentages is there as well. So if we have a number that was going to be a percentage, type in 20 here. If we convert that to a percentage, you'll see that it treats the number 1 as though that's 100. So it's a whole number, or the whole number 1 is 100%. So if we want a percentage, that usually is based on a decimal. So for example, if I type in 0.2, enter, that will give us 0.2%, so on and so forth. The formatting really is, as I say, quite self-explanatory. You'll also find that there's a drop-down at the top here that you can use to explore some of the different possibilities. For example, alternating your colors on your lines or your columns, should I say, to make it easier to understand. Hopefully that was helpful to you. Stay tuned for the next video.